We have a data sharing modeling working group as a subcommittee in this MPRINT. Next slide, please, Aditi. The working group member, including people in the Knowledge Research Coordination Center, KRCC, including myself as a group leader, Rob is from University of Buffalo, Chris Barlett from Nationwide Children's Hospital in OCU side, and Sean Grant is from Indiana University, and also Reagan Street. We also have a few program officers, Aaron Pollock and Leslie Ann and Katie Vance from DASH recently joining us as well. We have the CET at University of San Diego, Shirley Tornado, and also Peter Doriston. Then from Vanderbilt, we have Wei Chi Wei and Holly, Sabrina, Patrick Stephen, and Henry On. Next slide, please. So far, we have been focusing on two major issues. One is MPRINT, the Master Data Use Agreement, and the second one is MPRINT Data Sharing Plan. Next slide, please. And the scope of Master Data Use Agreement, though, is really facilitate data sharing within the MPRINT network. The scope is trying to share the identified electronic medical records, the identified data collected from clinical studies, and also both clinical data and omics data we're trying to share within MPRINT community. Next slide, please. The data use agreement development strategy is, we're not starting from scratch. So starting from scratch is really challenge. So we actually using the PicoNet, which is a pretty big PCORI funded network where there's an ongoing established data use agreement as the baseline. And it include PATH network, which OCU and Indiana University part of that. Peace network, including Nationwide Children's Hospital, and the STAR network, including Vanderbilt. They're all using a very similar PicoNet data use agreement. So we started that as our benchmark document. And then we're trying to circulate around MPRINT sites and see if there's any feedback or comments about this document. Next slide, please. And in this master data use agreement, we have two institutes, so-called concept. One is the host institute, where the institute who owns data, and the data request institute, which is another institute wanted data, request the data. So we define a number of responsibility of a host institute. Aditi does animation afterwards. Yeah, so there's a number of responsibilities of the host institute where they're gonna run the analytical query, which is research query may need RB approval from data request institute. Next. And analytic queries seeking return of aggregated data, de-identified data, and also limited data sets using limitation retention. Next. And also has test query retention period. Next, please. And a secure file transfer method and the security of network participants' data. Next, please. And it is also well-defined employees or representatives from the host institute. Next, please. And from the data request institute, we actually define the local obligation and authority, including participating in the query, data security, and integrity, data sharing, withdrawal of a response. Next. We also define the analytic query and a test query response. Next. And also review the results, secure data transfer method and the data confidentiality. So those are kind of a responsibility from the Data Request Institute. Next. And we also define the termination. There are several types of termination. One is a Data Request Institute terminate a data request. Data Host Institute can also terminate a data request. And finally, right now, MPRINT is founded a network, right? Then if the MPRINT network is not funded anymore, then all those DUAs will be avoided towards the end. Okay. Right now, we have a draft of DOA right now and waiting for response for 2 institutes. So that's what's happening. Hopefully we'll get it in the final document soon. It will still need a final approval from MPRINT steering committee afterwards. Okay, next please. Then we also developing a MPRINT data sharing plan. So the scope is raw data generated from MPRINT supported studies will be identified and shared in the DASH database. Okay. And the summarized data generated from MPRINT supported studies will be de-identified and shared in the MPRINT knowledge portal. Okay. The caveats, one caveat is that though is data sharing does not cover data that are governed by institutional DUAs signed before MPRINT. So there are situations where some data elements cannot be shared because of the other DOAs signed by institute before the MPRINT. So that those data elements will not be covered by MPRINT data sharing plan. Okay, next slide, please. So we also define the data sharing privilege ranking. So obviously, investigator in a MPRINT project, they have the highest privilege sharing their own data. Okay. Then the investigator in the MPRINT pilot project can also share their own data as well. Then after the data being published, the MPRINT network member can share and can see all those shared data in the MPRINT network. Finally, the data can be shared, eventually be shared to the general research community. The timeline wise, well, the data will not be shared before the send out publication from a MPRINT project. And the data will be shared within MPRINT network after it is sent out for publication. And the data will be shared with general research community after it is published. Okay, there's some exception where, for example, UC San Diego, the microbiome and metabolome data, the data itself will be published once they are generated, even though the clinical data may not be early on, because I think this is where fit the best interest of the research community. So that's one exception over there. Okay. Next slide, please. So the working project, we're trying to finalize the DUAs and the data sharing plan right now. I think hopefully in the next couple of months, we can, hopefully this 2 documents can cross the finish line, okay? And then we're gonna start talking about the model sharing plan. I think this is where Sarah Queenie and Robbie is gonna take a lead on that items. And in the meantime, we also started to discuss the data integration projects. One thing about is that we wanted to see how EHR data can be utilized to define drug-induced phenotype across institute. And we also thinking about how do we annotate the drug metabolites in a slightly different ways. So those, we have just started those projects and trying to get some collaboration with the MPRINT network. So that's all I have for the data sharing and modeling working group. Any questions?